Hi, I'm Shimelle Laine, and I'm here at Scrapbook.com to present the second lesson in our class on page composition. Today, we're going to look at how we can divide the page into thirds to find some lovely little spots that will always help your page feel balanced. And we're going to have some ideas for how you can adapt the idea if double pages are more your style too. To illustrate it, I'm just going to use a single photo, but there's definitely room for you to add more photos, and you can use any supplies you want. I'm going to be using two of my American Crafts collections, Never Grow Up, which is brand new, and Field Trip, which came out just a few months ago. I hope you enjoy seeing how they come together. Now, the first thing I need to do is to choose a background paper, and I want something to pick up on this lovely blue sky from this beach photo. So I'm going to use this pattern paper from the Field Trip collection. It's a blue grid, and it's the back of this brightly colored paper called Seek Knowledge. But I love this as something that you can cut into small pieces to make journaling boxes, and I love it as a background. It's just a really versatile, beautiful blue that complements pretty much every photo I can put on it. So you can see there, wow, what that does to that blue sky at the beach. And now I can start to choose things that will work on top. But first, one of my highly technical drawings to illustrate this design concept. So here we go. This time I'm not drawing a rectangle, I am drawing a square. I assure you it's going to be 100% an actual square. Just pretend with me. Okay, so here is my scrapbook page that is a square. Take your page and divide it like you would draw a tic-tac-toe board or noughts and crosses board, depending on where you're from, or a hashtag if that's more your style. So you're dividing it into 3 vertical columns and 3 horizontal rows. So now your page, if you were highly, highly technical, would have 9 equal squares. So just, bear with me. That gives you 4 junction points, and these junction points are special spots on the page that have a little bit more power to them than the other areas of the space. They're places where our eye will naturally sit and rest a little bit more because we love things divided in 3s. If you ever think of that whole idea of somebody says 2 things have happened and a third one is going to, because these things always come in 3s, it's just human nature to divide things into 3s and group things into 3s. And so we can use that to our advantage in our page design by taking the page and dividing it into those 3s and then finding the spots where things will naturally balance. So you can choose any of the 4 spots. Now, if you've watched lesson 1, you'll know that this top left corner is a really powerful point on the page, and it's probably the most powerful to somebody who reads in English or any language that reads from the top left. And because it's the one that our eye is trained to look at when we turn to the page in a book, that's where our eye goes to see what's happening. But the others are also very useful. I would say that this one at the bottom right is the second most powerful because it's the last thing that we see before we turn the page. And then the other 2 are also natural resting spots, but that's kind of the idea of what balance they give. If you want to do it across a double page, same sort of idea. So instead of having 4 dots on each page, you would have something that looks more like this. Treat it as a 12 by 24 canvas and do 3 rows, but your columns are going to be much wider. Something more like that. So this dotted line is the middle of, it's highly accurate there, but it is the middle of your double page spread. This is 1 12 by 12 and that's 1 12 by 12. And here are your resting points across a 12 by 24 canvas. Okay, I'm going to do a single here today, and I'm going to look at those 4 points. Now, if you want to take that idea and translate it to a 12 by 12 page, you're looking at dividing 12 by 3, which is 4. So you can make little dots with a pencil or a pen on your page and find out where things will be. So I can come up 1, 2, 3, 4 inches, and I know I'm going to be on that 8 mark. And then I can go 4 inches over here. To find the spot where my page is going to have its dividing points. So you can be as accurate with that as you want. But once you've done it a few times, you won't need the ruler anymore. You'll just see that there is a general idea that you can place it here. So if you have trouble figuring out where that spot is, use a ruler, measure it a few times until you get an eye for it, but then you can carry on. Because your photo is going to be bigger than a pinpoint, it doesn't really need to be exact. It's just a general concept to get you going. Now, I'm going to put my photo there, but obviously I want more on my page than just plain pattern paper and a picture. So let's see what else I can mix together here. I want to have a look at both of these 6x8 paper pads. So I have this one from Never Grow Up and this one from Field Trip. And I want to have a range of these to have something to write on, but also some lovely pattern. I don't want my blues to be exactly the same, but using different saturations of the same color can be really useful. So this blue from Never Grow Up works well with this blue from Field Trip. And then I can bring in a darker blue if I wanted to. Can contrast with some yellow. The one in Never Grow Up has a mix of patterns that are also in the pattern paper, but they're in a smaller scale in the 6x8, and journaling sheets. And Field Trip is more journaling based. We're at the beach, so the boat print can probably work here. There we go, this one. Yes, I know that if you've watched lesson 1, you'll know that that's the second time I've put the Wish yellow pattern paper with that blue multi-dot. But I do like the two together quite a lot. And then here, let's have a look at the journaling pad from Field Trip. So here you've got lots of different shapes that you can use for journaling, as well as different lined papers. I really like to bring in something that's a little lighter. And then the other one I want to add in from Field Trip is this rainbow. It's called Going Up because it has an arrow print as well. But this strip here I find really, really useful for a lot of different things. So I know I'm going to come back to that one. First, I'm going to build a set of mats behind this photo. I'm going to put the star aside for the moment and have a look at these options here to see what gives me the best contrast behind my photo. If you see where the edge of this photo goes on that blue, I've got a nice bit of contrast and it gives the photo a defined edge. The yellow is obviously different than the blue here as well, but where this is quite a pale color, there's not a huge amount of contrast between the tones of this color and the yellow. They're both middle saturation, if you can think of it in that term. So having something that's quite dark is going to give me a more grounded photo. There is a little bit of yellow in the photo, but there's more of the navy blue. So I think that on that train of thought, it works better as well. Bring over my We Are Memory Keepers trimmer and start to work on these. So I want to create just a little simple mat around this photo, keeping my adhesive away from the edges so that I have the ability to tuck things in as I go. Now, contrast between these two, which were very similar in shade. Now I can build with the rest. Just like in lesson 1, if I'm going to use a pattern with words that fit my theme, I want to make sure I have enough of it that it will be visible. So I'm going to keep that whole 6x8 paper just like that. Put my adhesive in the middle so I can tuck things around the edges. And I can use the grid of the background paper to keep it nice and straight too. Then the others I can cut into smaller strips. So I'm going to take a horizontal strip of the boats and a larger piece of the rainbow, about half of it. Now these two pattern papers are not very different in contrast. There's just a light blue and a slightly more saturated blue, but the idea of the motifs is very, very different. The style of these sketchy type rainbows and the style of the boats. So I want something in between those. That means I can bring in something like this. And if I place that so that it's going to be in between, then it's just a little bit of a break to keep everything nice and clean, and it's not going to jar the eye. So let's figure out where things can go. These two papers, the yellow and the rainbow, are the exact same width. So if I do this, I end up with all of my edges flush, and I would much prefer them to be offset. So I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to make it wider by cutting this right across and spreading it out behind the photo. Bring that edge over there. Once the photo is on top, you're never going to know that that piece is not that width. So I've basically stretched a 6-inch paper to be 8 inches wide. Now, what am I going to do with the rest of the page? Well, I need to make a space for my journaling and a space for my title before I start with other things. And I wanted to bring in this rainbow that gives me a whole color palette to play with. Now, the yellows in these two collections are the one color that is not a great match. So I'm going to use this rainbow strip just starting from the orange and going to the green. And I'm going to remove the yellow in this case. If you need it to go all the way across the 12 and you don't want to use that particular yellow, you could always just cut another yellow that you do like, that does fit the rest of your page, and replace that one. And that goes for any sort of pattern you have where there's a stripe and you want, most of the colors are right and you need it to be the full width. You could always take whatever spot is not right for your page and just add in something that is. So this is not yellow, but you can do that basically and make your own little block to finish it off. But in this case, I can just cut that and then cut it here to spread it out a little bit, just like I did with those 6x8 papers. Because this is going to be tucked behind there. Bring this down. If you don't have a grid paper to help you line up pieces like this, you can just use a ruler or a branding strip, and you put the first piece down where you want it, you hold the ruler where it is, and then you put the second one up to match the ruler. The Field Trip collection has these words and phrases in puffy thickers, and I can certainly use those. It also has a smaller alphabet in silver foil, also a puffy sticker, and I'm going to be using some of the stickers from the 6x12 sticker sheet here too. But none of these pieces are really a title piece. It's a set of smaller pieces. So I'll use that for my embellishment, and I'll take my title from these big puffy stickers. Now I've brought that green down here so that I can use the green from here. This is awesome in 2 parts here. Oh, 3 parts, sorry. I thought the S was connected and it's not. And now I can start to build out from what I've put on the page. I don't have to put something on each of the 4 spots. I just like to start with that most important thing on one of them and build out from there. So here I've made a horizontal space from my title, and you'll notice that this part of the title is floating at this point. So I can either make that a choice and be aware of that, or I can choose to put elements below it to give it a visual feel that it's being held up and it's not going to fall off and tumble down the page or anything like that. This is the Choose Adventure cut apart sheet, and indeed the piece I want is the one that says Choose Your Own Adventure. So I can take that small kind of a subtitle block and use it as an accent. And I want to build out from what's here. So I'm going to be tucking it in up here. And this is kind of getting to that junction point here. So this is a nice place for me to have a little subtitle, a little bit of embellishment. And while this one's going to be stronger than this one, that means that the photo is going to be a little bit, your eye is going to rest on the photo a little bit more than what's up here. And that's absolutely lovely. Totally works for me that this is going to be the one that's most important, but this can be a secondary spot where your eye will look for things. But it does also need some journaling space. So let's have a look at what we could do. Could use that same white paper and bring it right underneath there. And of course I could write straight onto the blue background. It's got lines, be nice and easy. But I would like the idea of making this paper a little bit more a part of the layout. On this page, I'm going to use cloud washi tape to mark off my areas of embellishment. One of them is going up here. If I had a darker color of washi tape that I had chosen, I might put it down underneath, but because it's quite light, I think it's going to show better up here. And then I want to make that A feel like it's not going to fall, so I'm going to use some here. Power of 3, I want a triangle to bring everything together, put all the important stuff in between. So my third area of embellishment is going to go down here. And then it's time to pile stuff on top. Let's have a look at that 6x12 sticker sheet. And choose a little something for each one. There's quite a few different word pieces on this set of stickers. Looking at the 6x12 sticker sheet from Never Grow Up, you can see another set of motifs that we can add in, and that doesn't need to be 2 collections from the same designer. It can be any stash that you've chosen to work with today. And I can choose something like maybe I put a feather in each group because I have more than 3 of those. And that's the sort of idea. I look for what motifs do I have at least 3 of that I can then start to make it all feel like it goes together. So green one up there, I've got this darker green here, and it's a nice shape to frame things on this side. So I can bring that in, tuck it a little bit underneath there, pick up that dot, put it back over the top. So I've got 1, 2, let's bring another feather down here, and I can bring in a little bit of that yellow, I think is a good call because I've got the yellow here, but it kind of disappears behind all this. I'm going to actually pick up different elements that I've already put down and make this one go right to the bottom of the page. And then the awesome is going to go over the top. So is the star. If overlapping things starts to give you a little bit of worry that you're covering up lots of wonderful things that you really love in your stash, keep in mind that if you like a layered look, there's no way to do that without covering things up, unless you want to constantly cut away the different pieces that you have. And you might end up with infinite stash that way if you kept cutting smaller and smaller pieces. But generally, we're going to have to cover up quite a few different layers in order to get that effect where you're only seeing a tiny little edge of each piece. And that's just kind of part of the layering game. So you can always choose to kind of categorize your papers and your die cuts by the things that you really, really, really want to see forever and the things that you're fine with showing just a smaller piece, and then use those for your layers that are in between and aren't going to show quite as much. And it might help if you have kind of layering anxiety. Now my journaling can go in this spot, and I think it's pretty important that I go ahead and add that before I encroach on the journaling area too much and run out of room. But then we're almost done. My journaling is here, so I've got everything that's important and everything I want on the page. I can just add a little finishing touch. I've added 1 star to each of those groups already, so I'm going to add 2 more small stars, and I'm going to use these little epoxy stickers, which are from Never Grow Up. This one, I'm going to take the stars and add them as confetti coming out of the grouping, so I'm not overlapping these pieces. I'm letting them have a little bit of breathing room to go outside the space. And that is this page done. Now, I did promise that we'd talk a little bit about how you could do this across a 12 by 12 page, or how you could add more photos. So let's have a quick little look. There's actually room here to make this into a box that has the space of 2 4 by 6 photos, and you would mat them on one, that navy blue, just 1 sheet of paper, make it wide enough to have 2 photos. And of course, if you want more than 2 photos, then you could bring the print size down, and this could be 2 photos here, 2 3 by 4s in this space, which would then give you the chance to have 4 photos. If you printed 4 3 by 4s, you wouldn't have to change the design that much. You'd end up with a little narrower column on this side, but you could make it taller so that you would have enough room if you needed more space for the journaling. And you just wouldn't have quite so much of this pattern paper on show. Now, if you took this design over the 12 by 12 page, you basically want to just take everything and make it double the width. So I would start by cutting something like this so that it's wider and it's going to be near the middle of the 12 by 24 canvas. And then every element can be bigger, so I can have more photos in a row. This could even be a mat that has 3 photos, and the last one ends up on that spot, but all the way over to this junction here. So I could have my photo be here and then run across a second photo that's both on the right-hand side and 1 photo here on the left-hand side to take you from that dot to that dot, all in photographs. And then all your other elements are going to be in this space around the edge. You're just going to take those and make them wider. You'll have a little bit more room to add more embellishment or bigger embellishment pieces too, but it can definitely expand to the 12 by 24 canvas instead of the 12 by 12. And if you need to make it smaller, then you're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to use smaller pattern papers and smaller pieces of embellishment and ephemera and all of that stuff. But you're still going to put everything on those dots. So that's lesson 2 finished, and thank you so much for joining me and watching. I'd love for you to play along and try this with whatever supplies, whatever story you want to tell, and share it with us here at Scrapbook.com. I'd love to see what you make. Enjoy!
Thanks for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more from Scrapbook.com, please like, share, subscribe, and leave a message. Happiness is like handmade.